Okay, we need to look at some examples for your midterm. I'm going to have a file for the midterm, just called Midterm, that you can download and then work on. You modify it and then upload it back like we've been doing. But I want to also provide a few examples for you on the website. So it's going to be a file called Midterm Examples. I've already pulled it down here on the desktop. We'll open it up, and it's going to have 4 different examples, A, B, C, and D. 2 of them are truth table examples, 2 of them are Venn diagram examples. So let's do the truth table examples first. I'm going to provide basically what you see here in this initial section, a list of arguments. You're going to evaluate them, write them out in terms of their argument form, identify it if it has one, and then give it its symbolic form as well, and then you're going to test for validity, either using a truth table or a Venn diagram depending on the situation. The first 2 examples, example A and B, are truth table examples. Now I want to show you something before we get going. For the most part I use a font called Times New Roman. It's just a standard. But when it comes time to actually doing the truth table, you can see down here where I'm pointing with the mouse, the font is different. I used a font that's called a fixed width font. In this particular case, Courier New. That's just what I've always used for no other reason than that. That's why I picked it. It's a good one to use. It's a fixed width font. It's kind of like a typewriter font. So every letter, every space occupies the same amount of space. So when you do something like a truth table, all the letters line up. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to select all that text and convert it into a different font. And you can see how everything gets all out of whack and out of shape, because this particular font will squish the spaces and things between letters and try and make it look visually more appealing. But in terms of doing truth tables, it just doesn't work out very well. So whenever you do your truth tables, use a fixed width font, at least for the table itself. You can use the table wizard if you want, but most people are having trouble with the tables in the last assignment anyway, so that's up to you. If you can figure out a good way to make it work, more power to you. Otherwise, just use a fixed width font and just type everything out individually, right? In this case, it's just a series of spaces, A space B, and a series of spaces again, and then the argument form, right? A or B, series of spaces, not B and A, right? So that's the easiest way probably to lay out a truth table. If you have questions, again, email me and I'd be more than happy to help you figure this out. The fixed width font, though, is kind of essential for making it all come out correctly. So let's look at example B. It's a little more complex. Now, some of you were having trouble with the symbols, so I'm going to look at that really quickly. If you follow the cursor here, there are a couple things you can do. You can either, for like the arrow, for example, insert a dash. Just hit the dash key, and then the greater than key, and that'll create what looks like an arrow. The other option you have is to go to Insert, Symbols, and go to the font. You click More Symbols and click the font called Symbol. There are lots of different fonts you can select from. Times New Roman and Courier and things. But in this case, choose the font that's called Symbol, and you'll see that sure enough, here's the conclusion symbol, and there are some arrows further on down that you can use, right? And what you do is you can either double click it and it'll automatically insert it in the text, or you can just click the insert button and it'll insert it in the text, right? And this will work the same for all the different kinds of fonts we might use, including you can use the three dots for the conclusion. So when you end up writing out your symbolic forms and stuff, you can insert these symbols, or you can use just the keystrokes where it's like a dash and a greater than sign, or for the biconditional, to a less than sign dash, greater than sign. Now that we've covered that, I'm going to remove these to avoid confusion. You know how to insert your symbols now. You know how to insert the symbol for the conclusion of things, and you also know how to set up using a fixed width font your truth tables. So I want you to just think about this. I'll come down here and give you an example of what I mean, it still should be set up in the font that we've been doing. Yeah, Courier New. I'm just going to add a couple extra lines. Say if there was for lines 9 dash space, right? False, 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 right? In this case, probably false, false space, false space, false space. Put spaces between all the things, and then tab over a couple times, right? And so you can use the tab button to space things out more evenly if you want. It's just up to you how you want to set it up, right? But the important thing is that it all stays the same, right? You want to have a uniform appearance, so it's easier for me to evaluate your truth table when you work out each line, because it can get confusing very fast. So you want to make sure you work through each column individually, working out all the truth values for the basic argument, right? In this case, you can see where the argument got upset. This premise should be over probably a couple more spaces so that the arrow centers over the truth value for the whole statement. And then the conclusion in this case ought to be slid over just a little bit so that it is over the column with the final conclusion values. So when you do your truth tables, this is how I want you to do it. Then you'll evaluate it. The premises are true, it leads to a true conclusion. That is valid. This argument is valid. You can do a description down here. You can do the description over here. It's up to you. But if there is even one case, there may be several lines that are valid, but if there's one case where there's a line that is true premises that lead to a false conclusion, that will always be invalid. The entire argument will be made invalid. Again, if you have questions over this, feel free to email me at any point, and I will try to help you before the due date for the midterm.